Is it in the keys? The fingertips that reach out to touch them? The string that begs to be bent? Or is it in the notes on a page? A foot to a pedal? The infinite space between imagination and skill? Or is it simply music?
Well, hello everyone, and happy holidays to you. This is the 13th Note Art and Mastery podcast, and we are coming in to about the week of Christmas, aren't we? So I'm your host, Jeff Spike Wong, and today I've decided that we're going to do an episode called the 13th Note Challenge. And what does that mean, the 13th Note Challenge? Well, the 13th note is about art of mastery. It's about being from a unique background and individually, no matter where you're at, what kind of financial system you came from, or what kind of teachings you have, what your background is about. It's about your self-awareness. So when you have your self-awareness and you realize, hey, I want to be great, or I want to be obtaining, achieving, ... whatever that may be, this is where you start to visualize and create. Most people win on instinct because seldom, youth are taught any of these processes and steps when they're trying to obtain and achieve their goals or dreams, actually. And I'll give a perfect example. When I was much younger, in probably fourth and fifth grade, I was very involved in playing Little League Baseball. And by playing Little League Baseball, that gave me a goal to obtain. Number one is to be good. Number two is enjoy the game and how to basically contribute as part of the team to win. And of course, Little League doesn't teach you things like strategies and so-called mental mindsets or training of any sort. We just showed up for practice maybe once or twice a week before the season started. Then once the season started, we played a game on Saturday. We played a game on the weekday. Very rarely we went back to ever having a practice of any sort unless we had a bye week or anything like that. And usually, it's a volunteer dad, and they're coming out and they're doing their best to just basically pitch batting practice. And then we get on to maybe little drills and whatnot, and that's it. And you're dealing with, again, 13, 14 kids around the age of 10, 11, 12. So with those kind of situations to play sports, we really didn't have the refinement aspect of it. And back then, this is in the mid 70s, we didn't have any kind of social media, YouTubes or anything like that, of course. So the only way that we could get better was to go to the library, which I did. My dad was so good at this. He would take us to the library every Saturday because he worked half day on Saturday. And he'll come home, pick me up, and we'd go to Burger King. Woo, that was such a treat. And then we would go to local library. The one we went to, it was in Houston, Spring Branch Library. I remember that fondly. And many times I went into that library and I would seek out baseball books, and they didn't have a lot, but they had this one particular one, and I'm sure it was published back in maybe the 50s because the way that the uniform and the photos dressed. But I learned a lot of my fundamental baseball from using that book. Now, was I a good baseball player when I was a kid? I was mediocre, probably a little below average. I could hit with power, but at games, I couldn't understand how to do that in pressure situations. I was great at batting practice. I was great at, doing things when we are playing sandlot. But when we got on a uniform and started playing competitive in Little League, I seemed to not have the same kind of contribution output from my hitting. My fielding was pretty good. I really didn't choke that much, but it's interesting. Back in Little League, if you weren't a good hitter, you really didn't play that much. So I ended up starting the season being batting clean up and in playing, and slowly but surely, because of my lack of contribution, I ended up playing maybe 2 or 3 innings a game by the end of the season, having one, maybe two at bats. Now, I could bellyache, but I didn't. I just didn't understand why I could not do what I know I should be doing on the field when we're in these games. So, as much older player, of course, now I can look back and really understand what was my issues. I didn't have proper coaching, number one, so that didn't help. I always understand that, number one, I was open to receive as a child. So as a kid out there hitting, if the coach would have just said, "Hey, you know what? You're crowding the plate," then I had a habit of crowding the plate because I didn't understand anything other than be ready to hit and so forth. I didn't really get the finer nuances of understanding strike zones, really looking for certain pitches of certain situations or anything like that. So for me, if the coach would have even just took a look at what I was doing with my I was batting right, so my left foot front toe was right at the edge of the plate inside. So I was crowding the plate. I literally leaned over the plate. Of course, I got beaned quite a few times, meaning hit by pitch. And I just thought that, guys were just being intimidating, because back in the 70s, if you had a pitcher that was pretty good and he threw a pretty darn good fastball and you crowded him the plate, he was going to brush you back. Well, Little League, they weren't brushing back. They were simply just hitting me. And this all the way, went up to the pony leagues and whatnot, which is at age 15. And nobody ever corrected me. I corrected this myself eventually in adult league at age 29, realizing, hey, wait a minute, I shouldn't be doing that. So number two was the fear intimidation factor. In the mindset of a child, I was extremely intimidated by the velocity of the pitching. So for me, I would show up at the game and tell people, or ask my teammates, it's like, who's pitching against us? And it'd be so-and-so from this team. And it's like, oh man, does he throw hard? Does he throw fast? That's the first thing. And what I'm doing is I'm setting up my own failure. And because if the guy says, on my team goes, oh yeah, Gary's pitching and he could throw really hard. Oh, great. So now my mind is already, I'm going to have to face a really hard thrower, a real fastball, and I'm probably not going to be able to hit that. I don't know if I can. And see, and I'm setting up a total wrong mindset in regards to go out there and compete and win. And this is not by any fault, just the baseball book taught the fundamentals of what's going on. In other words, use your glove this way, turn it this way. If it throws, turn your glove this way. If you need to scoop off the ground, you're holding your ball, for instance, don't just grab the ball like this. You got to grab it with your fingers and all that. And those are the things I was taught and learned from a book. But little nuances, for instance, of being able to recognize, hey, you got 3 balls, no strikes, don't take the swing. It's an automatic take. We didn't hear anything like that. It just was not taught to us. So those are the things that I know as a child that if I would have had a structure, a system, a coach that would help to understand the situations that I was facing with difficulties, I probably would have got way better results. So I am here to kind of help everyone coming into the end of this year. 2025 has been a tremendous year. It's, if you look all over the board, it is just the most historical thing that's been happening on the planet. And without having to go into all the little nitty gritty details, go to my podcast previous. Of course, go to my podcast with Conversations on the Fringe. You can just hear all the guests that I've interviewed in regards to how much our planet has changed, how our paradigm has shifted, and what kind of future we're heading. So I would say this, and this is going to be somewhat, I think a lot of people is going to go, oh, gee, that's woo woo, and that's just, made up. It is not. Okay. Because again, if you go back to some of my other podcasts with guests, we already broken this down. Energy equals frequency. Frequency could be light, sound, even feelings. And this is, of course, me breaking it down very simply. So just honor that everything in life is energy driven. Everything in our so-called reality can be changed by intensity of our projection, of our focus, our thought, our mindsets. So having to just using that structure, that set of tools, this is how we're going to approach. With this year ending, we are going to see even a more of everything coming into 2026. And the reason behind it is that we have this momentum of this energy moving. And a lot of, chatter has been going on podcasts regards to Three Eye Atlas being a catalyst of bringing a energy shift to our planet. I believe that's true. Of course, my good friend and also podcast guest, George H. Lewis, has broken it down in the astrological signs of star alignments and so forth. And he has, of course, talked about the energy surgence and how it's affecting all of us in certain ways in our current states, as well as moving forward to 2026. So I encourage everyone who questions of how to really understand what's all going on to do some research. Look it up, do some podcasting, listening, cross-reference. This is how I got involved. And I didn't come into the podcasting world thinking, hey, let's just go into podcast and talk and talk and talk. It really came from me listening to so many variable topics, guests, opinions, and point of views that I ended up having an opinion formed because of the research. After reading so many books and reading articles and listening to so many podcasts, I was invited into doing podcasting. And then that just went and blew up on its own. I was producing, just keep in mind, I was producing films and I was producing my wife's podcast, which is Cat's Home Chat. So it wasn't like I just got into this by default and accident. I really did have a background in entertainment and productions and things of that nature. So everything from setting up equipment and setting up the logistics, I already knew how to do everything. So it wasn't that hard for me to then step into this situation and using this type of platform to convey information, knowledge, and to hopefully contribute to the world's well-being. So today, with the 13th Note Challenge, that is exactly what I'm here to establish to do. I am here to be able to offer opportunities, challenges, and point of views so that hopefully you take away nuggets of good and truth that you can utilize yourself in obtaining what you want to do. Because 2026 is going to be dynamic. And, the president of the United States has already announced that this is coming up, the 250th year of the country. We are doing something incredible for July 4th. Everything is slated to go upward trajectory into something grand. Okay. So that doesn't mean, oh, well, that's just happened for this particular situation. No, the energy is now coming through all the way for all of us to benefit from. And this is where it's going to be very important for you to take a look at this and not go down the road of, well, everything sucks. Woe is me. I'm still practicing Satan rules, all that. If you're going down those roads, it's going to magnify those energies and you're going to attract those energies to you, and it's going to stay on you harder, longer, and tougher. Do you want that? Do you want that kind of outcome in 2026? I would say no, you wouldn't want that, because that would mean disaster. It's going to mean failures. It's going to mean heartbreaks. And let me just say this about failing. Failing is part of success. Failing has to be experienced to understand the taste of victory. But if you are set in a negative paradigm and the vortex is working with you in a negative energy, driving the force, then failure is your success. You follow? So therefore, you will never taste the sweet nectar of win, but you are constantly stew in the pit of failure, because that is how your mindset has set up to get your end results. So let's do something different. Let's change that. A couple of things that I would say. Let's start off. I did a whole bunch of videos, podcast on the 13th note, regards to systems, regards to processes. So, if you don't really resonate and understand what the heck I'm telling you, go back and watch some of that. And then, of course, I have my book. Here's my book. You can see it also on the wall, right? The 365 method was created for people that needed a system. This is a very nice hardbound book. It is meant to last lifetime. It's not cheap. It's $222, but it is designed for you to use this system. And it is designed to enhance your experience on this planet. There is no ifs, ands about it. If you took this book and you did how the instructions help to utilize every page of this book, you will have an incredible results by the end of it. Now, let's start with the bullet points of what the challenge is going to require from you. Let's just hypothetically, they say, this year, I'm going to finally do something that I've never done before. I'm going to quit drinking and I'm going to start working out. Okay. This is probably a lot of New Year resolution, if you will. In the fault, in the so-called failure of having New Year's resolution is extremely disappointing, because you have already set your mind to understand that New Year resolutions don't work. And predominantly for most people who ever makes New Year resolutions seldom achieve the results, because their resolutions for New Year, and they're put upon the thought process and within yourself that this is just something that you're going to set. It didn't mean that I wanted to change. It didn't mean that I'm tired of something that I've just no longer find it productive in my life. But instead, you're adding something to the calendar because the calendar says it's going to be a new year. And you have this so-called tradition that you want to then implement a New Year resolution. What we're going to do, number one, is we're never going to use the New Year resolution ever again. Because life is not 12 calendar years. Life is actually in cycles. We move in let's try that in English, right? Cyclical ways that moves around, sometimes to calendar days, years, and months. Not really every time. Sometimes it's just a matter of minutes or hours. Sometimes it's a matter of seasons. Sometimes it's just whatever that the universe way is going to allow it. So this is why to sit there and everything always have to be, I got to give myself this time. If I don't, it fails. I feel bad about it. I didn't care enough to feel bad about it. And then ultimately it didn't happen. It didn't exist. Why? Because I didn't put enough to it. Why? Well, it's a New Year resolution. I got other things to do. So you achieve nothing out of all that energy that you've dissipated into something that you, with the intention of wanting to get something with it, but the intention doesn't give you the results. The intention only gives you basically the map. Or let's just say this. We go to a restaurant. What do? They seat you from the host, right? They make sure you have your place set. And what is the next thing? Menus, right? By having the menu in front of you, you know what's available. But by having the menu in front of you, does that mean you're full now? The answer, of course, is no. How was the chicken tasting today? Well, I don't know. I haven't eaten it. Well, you see it on the menu. Don't you have some idea? Well, I might have had it before, but I don't know if it's going to be the same today. You see what I mean? Here is the same philosophy that when you go down with the idea, it's just simply the menu. That idea has not done anything yet other than just acknowledgement. So once you recognize this, you need to immediately start to work on your sequential system of the steps that you want to use. I'm not going to say that you have to use my system or, Tony Robbins' system or Stephen Covey's system or whoever system that has been successful that you may want to model. You can use it. I'm not saying don't use somebody's system. What I'm saying is if you're going to go with the system, understand it, identify it, implement it, and then execute it. If you don't do any of those things, then you're just looking at the menu. Let's look at the first key step into developing the challenge. And that key step is focus. Okay. What does focus mean, really? Focus is about not having distractions, number one, not having ways of looking at how do I get out of this? Because if you do that, you're not collectively there. Focus requires every ounce of your intention to be on that menu, to be able to create the next step from the menu, which is what? Order. You make a decision, then you have to order. If you don't order, you made the decision looking at the menu. Are you full? No, of course not. Well, why not? You made a decision. You looked at the menu. You have not ordered. You have not eaten. So you need to stay focused and really understand the steps of how systems work for you to achieve. So that's a challenge right here, because I'm going to tell you, a lot of folks out there has the worst focus, intentions, or mindsets of any generation. And why is that? Because number one, we have a lot of devices that has conditioned us to get immediate results for our gratification on that, or immediate answers, or immediate responses, or immediate. The key word is instantaneously, immediacy, that has drove away patience, that has drove away repeatability, that has drove away refine, and refine. So it's extremely now clear to all of us. If you don't have focus, you're just not going to get anywhere. Because I came to the restaurant, I got the menu, I looked over, I made a decision. Yeah, now I lost my focus. I'm looking at my device. I'm looking to, do something an hour from now. I'm not contributing anything to the next step, which is what? The order. The action of the decision has to be implemented. Okay, so that is one of the, I would say, biggest failures I've seen, especially when I was teaching music. When I was teaching music, I've seen so many kids fail. I've seen adults fail too. So, it's not just, kids are immature. They didn't understand. There's not enough life experience. No, I see a lot of adults also fail. Why? Because it just wasn't, I don't have the time. When I come home from work, my energy is go, then what inspired for you to even walk in the restaurant in the first place? Right? Why did you even come to me to take a lesson? Spend money, let me write lessons out for you. You do it for a couple of times, and then you start to fail. It's not that you're even not showing up. You're showing up not prepared. You're showing up not having done anything. Why would you show up if you haven't done anything? Would you ever go to work and you know it's a Monday meeting, or you know we have to, submit a certain report to somebody's desk, and you have nothing? I mean, zero, zilch, not prepared. And you show up and just go, well, sorry. You know what sorry gets? Nothing. You get nothing. And if this work, then of course your paycheck gets nothing because you get let go because you brought nothing. Nothing's not going to work. You have to recognize that that's how important it really is about focus and intentions on this. And to fail, especially when those of you out there that has such great heart, such intention, such emotional drive. I want to play the piano. I just love the piano. And I just, I went out and bought a piano and I got lessons. And okay, well, are you playing the piano? No, I haven't touched it in 6 months. What? Why? Well, things got busy. Things got busy. Huh? Things got busy. That is the biggest cop-out excuse I've ever heard, is things got busy, or I got busy with other things. And this, look, there's obviously a reason why you make decisions in a challenge to yourself. The thing is, there's also a decision made that causes your failure at this. And sometimes when the failure becomes too long-winded to the point where you're just going, there's no turning back, you just give up. Then the failure becomes true. Now you carry this thing around as, I wanted to be a pianist, but I just didn't have it. I didn't have what? Well, I don't have the talent. I had somebody say that to me recently. I tried to play guitar, but I gave it up because I didn't have the talent. Well, I'm going to share with all of you what talent is. Talent is tenacity. Talent is focus. Talent is hard work and resiliency of committing to that and staying on it until you see results. That's talent. Talent is not given where you grab an instrument and 5 minutes later you are pretty darn good. In 1 week you are proficient. That's a freak of nature. That is not a talent. And you cannot go on life in trying to exceed and expect that you are a freak of nature every time you want to do something. That is not how we are built or designed. We are here for lessons. We are here for experience. We are definitely here to recognize the potential of ourselves, self-awareness. Now, with those things lined up, then talent becomes the catalyst of what drives you to get better. So when you got better on an instrument, whether it's be a guitar, saxophone, piano, it does not matter. Even sports, you got better at jump shots, you got better at fastballs, does not matter. Is that your talent? No, that end result is not because you have talent on that skill. The end result is because you implemented your talent of coordination, focus, intensity, and self-awareness. That is your talent. That is your key to the success. Focus that. That's your first part of the 13th note challenge. Identify, figure out what you want, and then implement this intention, focus, repetition, resilience, passion. Don't let up. Don't quit. Don't stop. Keep going. You can take a break. Nobody says, hey, 24/7 go nuts until you just fall apart. Nobody is asking you to do that unless you want to. When I tell people that I practice guitar 10 hours a day at one time, you get a lot of really, no, it's just, yeah, really. And it's because if you listen to guys like Edward Van Halen, Steve Vai, Yngwie Malmsteen, all these great musicians that played guitar when I was growing up, what did they say? Well, I sat in my room. I didn't go outside and party with my friends. I didn't go anywhere. And next, 8-10 hours is gone. Okay. If I wanted to be on that level, that's what I needed to do. And I understood it. I wasn't taught that. I modeled that. So you can learn from witnessing greatness. But the key thing is witnessing greatness. Are you implementing and then taking what they have conveyed in sense of the information to assimilate to yourself to use it for the best foot forward, right? I am better guitar player today, yes, because I still play a lot. I don't do 10 hours anymore. But I would say this. There was a cusp when I was developing this skill around age 15, 16. I was horrible, not understanding a clue. Nobody in my family really understand music. Nobody was inspiring me. So it was my turntable, my record collection, my magazines of music, on bands and guitar players and whatnot. And that's it. That's my catalyst. So for me to become as good as I became by the time I was 17, it was that 2 years of just grinding and grinding. By the time I was 19, 20, I was at the professional level. That means that I could step and play pretty much anything I wanted with anybody at any time. Now, of course, now I look back at this. If I sat next to Barney Kessel and had to bop, I probably couldn't pull that off. But if I was in a rock band and, AC/DC came and say, hey, come up and do this song with us, or Van Halen came to town and say, he came up and do this song with us, I could do it easily at that point, around 18, 19 years old. And this is only less than 5 years of playing guitar. I started at 13, really sucked. 14, I got a real electric guitar, but it's still, I had no idea what tuning even was until I was 15. So I always look at the 15 age was the starting point, literally, because I understood it at that point. Oh, you got to tune it. Oh, there's notes that works together. Oh, so little things start to open up because I stayed with it. If I just went with, I want to be a rock guitarist, and I got a guitar from Montgomery Ward, and I was doing my Ace Frehley poses in front of the mirror, and then I really didn't learn to play, and I just set the instrument down because, hey, I just didn't put enough focus into it. You know what happens? I become a lot of guys that I went to school with who has a guitar in their room, who was pretty excited about playing guitar at 8th grade, 9th grade, 10th grade, maybe. And by the time we're graduating from senior year, I was the only last man standing with an instrument in my hand out of the little local group. And why that? Because I stayed on it. I stayed focused. So again, focus is so important to build into your challenge and your first step into something. Okay. Now, with the focus, it definitely carries and partners with intention. Intention with focus, what is the difference? Focus is locking into something. Intention is now creating the thought of what you want to create, to see happen here in the matrix by lasering into the final results. So let's, for instance, I went to the restaurant, got the menu, decided what I wanted. I now am ordering a steak, blue black, with a baked potato. So I focused it. I know what I'm going to get. So when the plate shows up, I know it's going to be a steak. It's going to cook blue black, and it's going to have potatoes on the side because I have put everything in play. Now, on the guitar end of it, of course, is I couldn't have been born in growing and playing guitar at a better time than the rise of Edward Van Halen. Sure, it would have been fun if I was older and grew up at British Invasion with the Beatles, or 1966, 67 when Jimi Hendrix showed up. Everybody has his own moments. But having 1978, 79 come out, and then by the time 1980 rolled around, I was perfectly ready for a icon that gave me the modeling tools, being, hey, this is how it could be done. This is how I did it. If you want to do this, you got to do these things. So 1980, April, Guitar Player magazine, Edward Van Halen on the cover for the first time on any guitar cover, I believe. I don't know if that precedes Guitar World. I can't remember. That's what happens when you're over 60, right? So I remember reading that. And of course, I did exactly what Edward was talking about. I ruined a lot of guitars, but I chopped them up and learned from it. Okay, so I took my brand new Stratocaster, immediately started chopping that sucker up with a router and tried to reinvent. I took my 72 Les Paul Custom, started pulling out pickups on it and try to wax it and all that. And of course, I look back at it now. I had a 79 Stratocaster Mint. I had a 72 embossed cover Les Paul guitar that was beautiful. And both of them are now a fraction of their worth because they were my Edward Van Halen projects. But from that Edward Van Halen project, from that due date of tearing things apart and understanding it, got me so interested in it. I took electronics in high school and then ultimately got jobs at mom and pop music stores fixing guitars and electric guitars, installing pickups and those type of things, and led me to a position in installing and building Rickenbacker guitars as a manufacturer bench tech. So, hey, it's a pretty nice journey, would you say, that from wanting to do something and then taking it into a career path. Now, of course, I wanted to play like Edward Van Halen, which I learned to play Edward Van Halen. And in my high school talent show, when Beat It was just maybe 6 months into the consciousness of the world, very few people really understood who Edward Van Halen was at that time in a high school level, except for us guitar guys, Van Halen fans. I was able to reproduce Beat It's guitar solo with a high school talent show with the high school band. And it was fun. It was great. And I would say that was about as OG as it gets, because you know what? Kids today are still doing Beat It in high school talent shows. How about that? And I did mine in 1983. So all this kind of rears back to the intention that I have is I wanted to be able to do Edward Van Halen. I wanted to be that caliber of creative musician on that particular instrument. And that was not easy. It required exactly what Edward says. Sit on the edge of bed, practice. Well, he had a pack of smokes and, a 6-pack of beer, and he played until his brother Al came home at 4 a.m. and he was still playing. Well, I didn't have the beer, but I had my cigarette sitting next to it. Yeah, I was smoking in high school because that's how impressionable I was. If Hendrix, Page, and Edward Van Halen all had a cigarette in their mouth, hey, who am I to say, no, I don't want to be that, right? So those kind of sessions were inspired because of the end results they shown me on the records. And by having the intention to stay focused on achieving that end results, in other words, hey, that doesn't sound like Eruption. Hey, that doesn't sound like Beat It. That means it's not done yet. Keep going, keep working at it, keep at it. I remember teaching, a bunch of girls playing Taylor Swift about 15 years ago when Taylor came in the scene. And it's interesting that every week I was getting at least 6 to 8 girls with acoustic guitars saying, hey, I want to play Taylor Swift, and give me a song. And I read, it's like maybe 3 to 4 chords and whatnot. So I'm trying to teach them how to move their fingers and so forth. And about 80 to 90% of these students quit after 2 lessons. Why? Because being Taylor Swift was not overnight. Being able to play guitar was not instantaneous. What lessons does that teach to the youth of America when you want to be something great, something that was inspirational, something that you thought was fantastic, that it just has them, you just got to make it part of you. And then you walk away from it after a couple of weeks because, hey, you know what? The skill sets to be someone like that requires work. And I'd rather, not do that. What can I say? Ultimately, out of that group of girls, you know how many girls actually left to stay and end up playing guitar so they can do their Taylor Swift? The answer was 0. Nada. So with focus and intention in place, the last component that you go into is commitment. Sounds easy, right? Commitment. Oh, yeah. I've ordered. I know what I want. I'm going to get my food. I'm full now, right? No, of course not. You got to eat the food. You got to cut into it. You got to put it in your mouth. You got to chew it. You got to put it in your body. And then once you finish your plate, then you're satisfied. That's your commitment to stop your hunger. Then your journey's complete. Of course, you got to pay the bill. But let's just say that's part of the commitment. You go into a restaurant, you already know that you have to give money out because you're buying food. Okay. So if you're playing guitar and you've already made all that practice, your commitment is, I'm going to be doing this until I'm able to play this song. I'm able to perform this length. I'm able to do whatever the ... may be. And that to me is the straw that a lot of times breaks the camel's back. Why? Because commitment is time consuming. Commitment takes effort, takes energy. And all the focus and intention has to be even more kicked up on that level. So when you're eating, you notice when you eat, it's way more effort and it takes much more time than decision and looking at the menu. Now, when you're going into this commitment factor, you have to really be honest with yourself if you want to be successful. Number one is you have to be very self-aware. Are you a quitter? Have you ever asked yourself that question? How many things you wanted in life that you never achieved? Is it overwhelming 50% of the stuff you wanted to do, you never done, never achieved it? Well, there's some thought to that, right? Is it because it just, after assessing it, well, it's just not for me? That's fair. But if you're the kind of person that already made the focus, already put the intention on, already achieve all the things that you get up to the point of executing and making the commitment, then, well, you got no one to blame but yourself. This is why self-awareness is so important about the self-refinement and being able to achieve greatness. Number one is you have to be hard on yourself. Don't ever let people tell you, you could just let that go. You can be soft, it's not life or death. A lot of people will sit there and help you sabotage yourself. The fact remains, if you want something fantastic, like me, I want to be a good piano player. I'm not. Why? Because I know I don't practice. I don't have the piano in my room set up to the point where I can walk up to and practice it. However, I have learned it. I can play it. I can understand how to play virtually everything music-wise because I understand the theory aspect of it. But physicality, how my hands can move on the piano, is not up to par to be a quality pianist. So why do I not practice? Because I lack commitment. But am I okay with that? Yes, I am. Because my focus, my intention was to be able to play piano. And this comes from even from the days when I was a kid. My aunt had a piano in her house, and I remember going over there and we would play G.I. Joe under the thing because the thing was huge. It was this like Millennium Falcon looking thing, right? But the piano, first time I heard it was from my cousin's wife. She's this gorgeous woman, obviously, very schooled, very educated. And she was one of those kids, that Asian family that was taught that you have to learn how to play piano. Okay, good. So she shows up at a family gathering and she's in my aunt's house and we're sitting there, around screwing around on the piano, probably 11, 12 years old. And we're tinking on the piano, basically pounding keys, being stupid. And she came in the room and she talked about a moment about, oh yeah, playing piano, blah, 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 blah. I said, yeah, you can play songs. He goes, yeah, it opens up a book, start reading the book and start playing it. And I remember standing there just going, really? Oh man. And I was just blown away. It was almost like somebody doing magic. Yeah, can you see this? Oh no, bing, here, there's the ball. I was just like, wow. So I remember going, can you play this? And opening up the book and shuffling, finding pages of songs that I knew. And I would go, here, play this. And she would open them, take a look at it for a second, put her hands down on the piano, and then her face would be right in the book, right? It was like leaning over and her hands is on the piano. She's not looking at her hands. She's not, you know, distracted or looking away. She wasn't doing Stevie Wonder, nothing. She was on that book. And as she played it, I was just marveled. She's looking at a book and she's able to do that on the instrument. Holy moly. That was a incredible moment for me, because now all of a sudden I just went, this is great. You can do things like this if you knew how to read that. So that gave me a different paradigm in regards to how music worked, what practice, what intention and knowledge about music is all about, music theory or music scoring or reading. So all those skills that I just mentioned requires time, commitment. Some things requires lifetime refinement, like reading. Reading music is something that I know a lot of musicians that are self-taught don't do. Why? Probably because I don't need it. And I think the real truth behind it is laziness. It requires discipline. It requires focus. It requires intention to learn how to read music. I went to JC to learn how to read bass clef as a bass player in a jazz band, because I heard a lot of guitar players get slammed. You know, guitar players are lazy. They can't read bass clef and they don't know. So I purposely went and made a challenge to myself. Yeah, how about that? 13th note challenge when I was 18 years old, going into JC, to play something that I really only dabbled in rock and roll, which is playing bass. Gene Simmons, that was my hero, you know, and it's interesting semester because I went from a band playing jazz standards, and a lot of guys who showed up who was taking that class, realizing that they had a guy on bass that really was a rock guy and did not really know how to play. Had a drummer that sat in. It was a rock drummer. He didn't have a lot of jazz, you know, thing. He was very similar to me. So we had a rhythm section that didn't offer the horns or guys like that much. So after a couple of classes, a lot of the guys who were supposed to be seasoned players dropped out, to the point where my professor ended up playing trumpet, and he was first chair North Texas State. So he, as an educator, realized, hey, you know what? Nobody wants to play ball. Fine. We'll play ball within ourselves. And we had a keyboard player. We had two keyboard players. One of them became a friend. She was rock and roll keyboard player. She could play your REO Speedwagons and Sticks and so forth. So, you know, she was just there to have fun. And my other guy, who was another, you know, probably just a standard piano player. In other words, he didn't have a certain genre he preferred to play in, but he could read. So we had those two. And then we had the instructor being the first chair trumpet. We had I believe, a saxophonist, and then bass, drums. And it was interesting because, you know, we had a semester to work up for a Christmas program. And at that Christmas program, we have a variety of different bands, concert bands, pop singer bands, and of course, then the jazz ensemble. And all the guys who quit the jazz ensemble in the beginning of the semester, thinking that this is a disaster, were blown away at the Christmas program that we were able to play 3 jazz standards with integrity, with vocal capability of vocalization of the melody correct, with command and intention that really gave the song life. And that was one of the really crowning moments for me, because that was a challenge that, again, I was laughed at. Not, you know, not like ha 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 in front of you, but it was laughed at by the seasoned players that they wanted no part of this amateur hour thing. And for us to walk away feeling pretty darn good and everybody giving us respect was a challenge. Winning, and we deserved it. And that's why, to me, those little short-term goals that gave us the challenge gave me the ultimate understanding, the bigger pictures of what I need to do, how I need to approach it, and how important certain steps are, especially the level of commitment. The level of commitment is the hardest part, because if you give up, on after you made a decision on commitment, you are definitely number one, cheating yourself. You are betraying yourself at that point. And if you betray yourself enough, you start to have really bad self esteem at that point. You may not feel it. You may think you don't. You will actually try to empower it with anger. You may distract yourself with, non essentials. In other words, things that don't matter, things that you already were good at. So you just kept on doing the same thing. And therefore, you don't have to face the betrayal that you have made the decision to give yourself. So your number one challenge too, out of the 13th no challenges, make this decision, take a challenge, and do not betray yourself by quitting prematurely. Now, what is prematurely? Any time prior to your result that is exactly what your intention and focus set out to get. In a restaurant, we're getting that steak on blue black with the potato, and I end up not getting that. And I just had, the bread and the water. The steak didn't show up, or the steak showed up, didn't like it, didn't eat it. You didn't achieve your results. Can you blame it on the people? Sure. A lot of people who betray themselves use other people as scapegoats. If you're doing that, you need to stop. Other people are not responsible for your success. Your crowning moment does not equate to other people's contribution. Your crowning moment is you being aware. Sure, there could be other people to help, coaches, parents, all those things. But they're not the reason why you did it. Let me say that again. Coaches, parents, and others that can contribute to your success, but they're not the one that did it. You are. That is important. That is the apex and the summit of what you are striving for. When you're up at that mountain of success and you're finally at the peak, who's up there with you? It's your journey. You're the only one up there with you. But then also recognize it's your journey. It's been always about you by yourself this whole time. Now, the key that a lot of people don't like this message is that, well, why should it always be about me? It's not about me. It's about the team. It's about us. It's about, okay, yes, it's about the team if you're in a team environment. But the key component is, what are you focusing on as the key component of that team? Are you the cog in the wheel? Are you the oil in the line that flows? Are you the blood for the body? Or are you the main piston that actually drive the machine? Do you identify correctly? And then are you doing your job to the fullest for the machine, the team to work correctly? So again, it all goes back to, what is your awareness? What is your personal challenge? And what are you committed to do once you have your focus and intention? It is so easy to sit there and constantly put blame on others, and then put blame on situationals, and put, just whatever excuse that you can find to eliminate the recognition of self-failure or self-betrayal. It's not about failure, because I tell you what, you can fail a million times and then you get it right. And that one right justifies the million failures, because you never did fail. You just constantly refining until you got what you want. The betrayal is telling yourself that you're going to do something and then go with every fiber of your being against what you made a decision on. That is the big difference. That is huge. So with that type of decision on commitment, don't betray your commitment. Don't betray your decision. Don't betray your efforts. Nothing worse is put 3-4 months of effort into something and then go, nah, I don't want to do it anymore because I don't see anything happening. How many people have done that? How about, the person that says, I'll give it 1 year. I will do this and I'll give it 1 year. Well, what is it? I'm going to be a great chef in 1 year. I think that's possible. That could be done. I'm going to be a world-class pianist in 1 year. No, let's be realistic here. There's only a few selected that in the world is great enough to be a concert pianist that can lead a 60-piece symphony. So if you want that as your reality, it's going to require much grander, deeper efforts and commitments. So it is, what are you picking? What's on the menu? I want a souffle. Well, that's going to take half an hour to an hour compared to, I want a cheeseburger. That can be done in 5 minutes. So understand your dynamic. That is your challenge as well, your 13th note challenge. So what is your 13th note challenge? Write it down. I can't begin to tell you how important it is for you to write stuff down so you can revisit, so you can look at it, so you can embellish it, so you can refine it, so you can add to it. Opposed to, I thought, this is a great year that I'm going to stop drinking. Why? Well, drinking's not good for you. And, I make bad decisions when I drink and I have a DUI. Oh, well, anything that you've done, anything that already got you to have a blemish in your record from the side of the law, you need to stop doing that. If you're stealing, don't steal. If you're drinking and driving, don't do that. Come on, folks. Let's be smart here. Let's just not do things because it's easy. And easy is also the perception of what you do. Is it easy for someone to play guitar when they've been playing it for 40 years? Yeah, it's somewhat easy. I can pick up a guitar and play because it's somewhat easy. Here's a good example. Here's a guitar, right? The hardest thing for a lot of people is doing this thing. D chord. See how your fingers have to fold over and then you have to drop this. So a lot of people are doing this back and forth and then having to spread and do a G, right? And then I can sit here and just go. If I take it from a way different position, further away from the neck, I can come right back to the D. Why? Because how many thousands of hours do you think I've already put into this? Right? Even before I became a professional, how many thousands of hours do you think I put into that? So is it easy for some people? Yes. Is it easy because it was God's given talent? Well, yes and no. The God-given talent is the ability to focus the intention and make the commitment and then follow through it. The God-given talent for it to be just easy, so when I put my finger on it and it falls on it and it becomes great, no, not like that. Of all the years I've taught, and I've taught for a better part of 3 decades, I truly only remember only one student that was what I would consider freak of nature gifted. And he's not a world-class player. I have students that became world-class players, professionals, make a living and all that good stuff. This kid had just freak of nature hand. I remember seeing his hand for the first time. He was 15. And I just went, wow, look at your hand. It's great. Now I'm going to show you how to bar your hand on the chord. Basically the first 10 minutes, I was just showing him how you would facilitate your hand. And he followed me, shadowed me well. He was able to do this just as I was doing it. Okay, great. So we start to do individual notes, legatos and tap and so forth, pull-offs. And he was able to mirror that pretty good. But remind you, folks, he's never played guitar and he's only sat with me for the first 15 minutes. I was sitting there inside. Well, of course, I was jumping up and down. Wow, I can't believe what I'm watching here. Within a month, we had a recital and he went up and played. Of course, he didn't play with maturity. In other words, he didn't understand music yet. He didn't understand the energy of the emotions, and he doesn't have those kind of experiences. But to play it within a scale degree, within a key that he was able to learn, and then play with the agility of an accomplished player, he could. He just didn't really understand what he was saying on that. He didn't know how to phrase it well. His maturity of those things are not there. But for someone in 1 month to be able to play in a band scenario, in other words, we had a bass player, a drummer, and then let him be the lead guitar in the front and basically to do his thing in 1 month of lessons was incredible. Freak of nature. 1 in 30 years plus. Okay. So that's the reality, folks. That is the reality of what God-given talent versus your own talent. And that talent is still God-given, of course, but your talent is focus, intention, challenge, execute. And that is your 13th no challenge for coming up. We are wrapping up the holiday season. I'm going to do probably a couple of more of a Miracles Online podcast, and then we're going to call it a year and wrap it up because, you know, I still got to finish my book. I'm writing a book on baseball training for men, and this is going to be a doozy of a book because I'm going to hit on a lot of things such as focus, intention, mindsets, as well as martial arts hybrid training for athleticism into baseball. So that book is coming out. We are moving Miracles Online podcast over to our Rumble channel in 2026. So we're moving everything that is Miracles Online onto our own platform. So we're leaving redpills.tv on that particular podcast. We got the Yahoo store, which is part of the Yahoo Publishing, as well as Miracles Online merchandising. All that has been built. We have our Miracles Online Substack that's been active for months, and you can see all kind of great stuff. And what we wanted to do with Miracles Online was we want to be able to help people on discussion of relationship, marriage, dating, love. And we decided that the way to do this is possibly live stream question and answer. So these are all things that we put onto our plates, we meaning me and my wife, Kat, into creating our challenge. And these are challenges that we've met and executed and now are fruition and happening right live in this matrix every day. So a year ago in December, celebrating Christmas, none of this existed. Think about that. None of this existed. So it's been an incredible year. I want to thank you all for participating. I want to thank all my guests, everybody that has come on and share their wisdom, from Joe Zeller and pitching in the professionals and how to take that from a kid travel team and so forth to, you know, of course, Ned Evett, how he explored to play guitar that is really invented, but not utilized in the way that he became the master of slide fretless guitar. And then on top of that, he got guitar and made it with glass. I mean, go figure that. And that is, to me, one of the most innovative creation of our lifetime. I've said this to him one time, and I still believe this. As Edward Van Halen popularized tapping and those type of things with two-hand technique, I believe that Ned was on path of sharing and teaching folks musicality using a slide guitar fretless and teaching and cultivating and then himself developing an artistry from it. And that has been unique. So, and then of course, many of my guests, whether it be Bobby Fikes, my own inspiration when I was in high school, Cole Stanfield, incredible songwriter, came out, Jay Barth, of course, the incredible sound man in front of the house for all the folks such as my heroes growing up, Kiss, Cheap Trick, Bob Seger, those guys. George Lewis, of course, taught me so many things about the stars, the astrology, that I realized that I can't ignore. So one of my 13th No Challenge this coming up year is I'm going to get deeper in understanding about what astrology is about. And I think it's important to understand where we're at. These are all things that we shouldn't just take for granted. Nobody's going to do these things for us, to understand the world. Only we are going to be able to understand our own experiences. So everything and anything that you feel that can contribute to the greatness of self-awareness, hey, take a look at it. If you want, get into it. And if you commit to it, deep dive and go with all your heart and get the most out of it. Right? Those are the things. Of course, a lot of the music buddies that came in that did stuff with the 13th note that helped tremendously. Gary Shea from Alcatraz in New England was fantastic. Definitely. Who else am I missing here? Of course, Derek Van Halen. That was one of my fun podcasts on that, because Derek was been emulating Edward Van Halen for well over a decade, and he does it incredibly, because it shows on the world's greatest tribute bands on Access TV. And to hear someone who took someone's mastery and then pay tribute to it is incredible. It really gives the mindset, the amount of discipline that he must have to emulate the icon. And like for me, I was inspired by Edward Van Halen. By no means I would ever put myself in a situation that I had to go be Edward every night. That would be too hard. That means I can't be myself. I have to do the Edward thing. And Derek is able to do that and enjoy every moment of it, squeeze every bit out of that, and then do it justice. And I applaud him for that. I'm of course going this off top of my head. Anybody I miss, I'm sorry. You're all of you has been so great on the 13th note this year. Of course, my wife Kat was on it, woman of CEO. I'm still looking forward to bringing people in such as Jenny Norris right here. She is the CEO and president of Staging what is it? IHOSP, which is an organization association that deals with worldwide staging, International Association of Home Staging and Professionals. And this is just, I never really understood staging much until Kat got into it over a decade ago. Once I understood what the industry is about, then I met Jenny and I realized, okay, there wasn't just one creator, there was multiple creators, and yet this was the brain behind the machine. So I'm looking forward to bringing her in to do a 13th Note Art of Mastery podcast soon. And with that, I wish everyone a happy holidays, no matter what your holiday is. Merry Christmas. Even though I know that a lot of truth is coming out on whether this is true Christ's birthday or not, it just does not matter. It's a matter of the intention, the heart, and the love that you give to each other, to our family, and the greatness that you can embrace those things without judgment. And this is where I want to be able to create and love and spread the wealth of the greatness that I am receiving from our Creator, from each other, from our family, from our friends. And with that, I want to thank you so much for tuning in today. And be sure to like and subscribe. 13th Note will still be on redpills.tv every Sunday on the restream. And I stream live on this one. I wanted to just get these things out on my platforms. It's on my YouTube. It's on my LinkedIn. It's on my Facebook. And of course, it's on the 13th Note Rumble channel as well. And to me, this has been not only an incredible accomplishment, it's exceeded my expectations. I came into this not really understanding why I was driven here to get into the podcasting world. Because I was, like I said, making a film. We finished the 13th Note short film and won 17 awards and 9 festivals worldwide. And I was very proud of that. And we wanted to create an education system, a merchandising store and all that. But however, those things start to move and start to develop, and start to go in the direction now of the 13th Note podcast, Art and Mastery. Then, of course, the key catalyst, the instrumental person that was the ultimate coach for me, Josh Reed. Josh Reed is someone that I looked up to in the podcast where I listened to, really believe in the mission he was on, and to be able to have him and befriend him, and then ultimately have him kind of take me under his wings and help me develop, has been heaven sent. So thank you, Josh. Thank you, everyone out there. I wish you all the best, and I wish you success on your 13th Note Challenge. And we will see you on the next episode. Don't forget, like, subscribe, comment, share. I'll see you soon.
I don't do it for the money. I do it because I love it. I do it for the art in it. It's art. You're creating something. You know what I mean?
Right, when you listen to it, you feel it. When I play it, every note resonates to me.
Is it in the keys? The fingertips that reach out to touch them? The string that begs to be bent? Or is it in the notes on a page? A foot to a pedal? The infinite space between imagination and skill? Or is it simply music?
You know, we all relate to music and respond to music, you know, because music is an emotion, and that's what taps into the human soul.
I think it does. I think music is one of the things in the world that connects everybody on that level.
I think the music is not just the songs we're listening. Listen to this water. So this is music, right? It's any kind of sound that can be music, right? As long as you feel connected.
Gives you solace, and it, you know, you've heard that prophecy or the Confucius or whatever ancient Chinese proverb talk about the man with 2 pennies, and if he has one, he needs to buy a loaf of bread to sustain his life, but then the other penny is for a flower to give him a reason for living.
I tend to usually go for the angry stuff. It's more fun.
the innovators, and funny enough, as it pertains to Rusty, it's kind of getting back into kind of like reinventing his presence online. But I don't think he realizes sometimes like maybe he does, what he started, as far as like he's one of the original YouTube guys.
Bet you can't play this.
No, I used to call everybody from the other bands, but you got to see this guitar player. You know, come in the dressing room and he'd shred it up, and while he was shredding, I'd be like, you got to show me that lick. And Rusty's he can tell you what he's doing very clearly, so it's up to you to put it to use, but he's a very good teacher.
The needle drops and finds its groove. The air around you changes from ordinary to electric. Oxygen is replaced by sound waves, and in that one magnificent moment, you feel free.
When I was studying my piano, it was hard. I mean, the teachers are hard, and because they know you're gonna do good, and they just, it's a lot of force. But now I don't force my students that much, I guess.
The thing that was different about her is that when she would come into her lessons, ready to play, beautifully prepared, most of the time she wanted to hear me play. She wanted to learn, how can I think differently? And she's extremely much like a sponge in this way, and open and willing to see other ideas, which is a mark of artistry.
When someone who's at the level of Yin, who's earned the accolades, who's earned the degrees, you have to really do cherish an individual who has spent so much effort and time, investment into mastery. In her mastery of herself, in her intention, and then becoming the language that comes out on the instrument of the piano is just absolutely stunning.
We're all our own worst enemies, you know what I mean, or critics, you know what I mean? And no matter what anybody tells me about my playing, I know what I sound like. You know what I mean? And I know what's wrong with my playing, and I know what I need to get better at. I mean, realistically, it would take many lifetimes to master an instrument.
I'll never be happy with my playing. You know, playing to me is half joy, half struggle. It's definitely a lifelong quest, but I feel like every time I see another guitar player doing something I can't do, it pushes me that much more to try and get there, and I feel like I've just begun.
You're always trying to be better, but at the same time, you're trying to be more appreciative right now what you're doing.
I think if you're satisfied, you're not growing. True. You know, I think that
you're probably not a true artist if you are satisfied, because you're always looking for that next.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I don't think there's been one song in my lifetime that I finish and go, okay, that's finished.
The blinding light. Your nerves turn to adrenaline. Your eyes focus on so much more than what you see. The crowd screams, and just for a second, time stands still. The mixture of fear and confidence turns into an indescribable energy that surrounds anyone near it. An invisible force creating the bridge between the audience and performer.
Nerves are the biggest enemy of the musician. I think it's healthy to have that respect to get on stage and do your best.
In the beginning, I never had stage fright or anything like that at all. And then when I started playing instrumental music, when the spotlight was all on me and everybody was watching and every note that I played, because it's very meticulous music and a lot of notes. And you know, if I didn't hit every single note right, you know, it was bad news for me. I had to learn how to deal with that. And I started to develop stage fright from that. It was like I would get nervous, but I couldn't understand why I was nervous. I couldn't pinpoint. It's like, well, I don't know why I'm nervous. I'm just nervous. I got anxiety or something. And that moved on over into Outworld, which I experienced that a little bit with Outworld, but it started to go away. I read a couple of books on how to control your inner voice and stuff like that, which helped a lot. But now I'm back to where I was in the beginning. I mean, first time I played live was in the talent show in high school. And it was to a packed auditorium. And I was just like, boom, on, let's go.
It builds up by time this confidence about, about not to care too much about your mistakes. Because especially, I think that when you're new on the stage, you're exaggerating all this, the little mistakes that you're making. But after you heard the comments from the audience, you actually, you realize it's not a big deal. And some of them, they don't even realize that you made a mistake. So it's just in your mind.
Something happens in between music and human beings. It's a place in the universe where the possibility of perfection laughs in the face of those who try and achieve it. Music takes you on a journey through the wilderness of unexplored creation. You may find yourself in the vast desert of the unknown, and at the same time drowning in streams of ink, deeper than any ocean.
What I feel like Rusty's really good at, and he's kind of, I guess, taught me this along the way and other people that he's been around, is if there's a fan there who's coming up to take the time to say hi to you or say good show or way to play, like he'll always kind of stop and make sure to say thanks.
I think more than performing, it's when you get off stage and a fan comes up to you and tells you how much your music meant to them or how much the performance impacted them or how much your music's impacted their life. That's gratifying. That makes it all worth it. All the stuff that you have to go through as a musician, starving and fighting with management and record labels and touring and all that stuff. It's not fun, but it's that one moment. All it takes is one person to tell you that, and it's like, man, this is why I do it.
We learn from others, and it's our obligation to pass it on. Just like Yen came to the University of Houston to learn, now she's spreading her great, great talent. And this is what it's all about.
I remember meeting a couple who had a baby who passed away with our lyrics on the tombstone of their child's, headstone. And then I've met people who say they were suicidal and our songs kept them from going through with it. And I love meeting the kid who says, I started playing guitar because I heard your songs, and now I've been playing guitar for 15 years. Makes me feel old, but I've ran into so many of those folks that it makes me feel very fulfilled with what I've done.
Music makes me feel free, right? Because when I'm speaking, I always feel restricted by the language, by the words, by the grammar, and logic, right? So, because you have to be logic. But in music, when I'm playing, I can do whatever I want.
That need to create and that need to, especially for us guys, that's one of the few things we can create, So it gives us that ability to put your heart and soul into something and send it out to the world and say, hey, this is this is truly part of me, and this is truly part of, you know, my soul. So here it is, you know, in all its glory.
That's kind of a lot of the reason why I keep teaching.
There's a Greek word, rheo, R-H-E-O, that means flow. And rhythm comes from that. And it's a rhythm of life. It's not just sound. It's propelling us all forward, surrounded by the art.
That's the creation of music. Can you imagine the world without music? Imagine watching a movie with no soundtrack. You wouldn't know how to feel. Because it's the music that's prefacing the scene, that's telling you, oh, this is going to be a scary scene, or this is going to be a triumphant, happy, glorious moment, or whatever. It's the music is dictating your emotions before the scene actually happened.
Even like we say different language, but but the music is all the same, and we understand it the same way. And when I play something, I ask her like them, how do you feel? And they will say, oh, like I feel it's a happy song, a sad song. Yes, I feel that feeling is the same.
Music actually goes back to what I was saying, is the universal thing. It is the consciousness. It is part of the entire make of what we are as reality.
It's not the answer, it's the question. What does it mean to truly be alive? To experience all the joys and wonders of this world? To understand the poetry of sound and embrace the absence of silence? Music, the universal current that courses through the veins of possibility.
I think it will be always the biggest part of my life.
The sheer joy and gratification that you get from playing it and the feeling that it gives you.
It's an art that goes by in time, and I think we seek beauty in the music.
Music is my happiness.
I don't know another way to communicate certain things than like fingers through notes.
It'll be part of me forever. You know, there's nothing can take it away. It's the one thing that's always there.
Yeah. It's every emotion you can imagine in all the colors in between.
I wouldn't change it for a million years. It's all, I don't want to go back. I want to continue to go forward and just keep on, just be the best I can and continue to contribute. But no regrets.
The truth is, there was a time when music wasn't here. When nature's orchestra played the wind in the trees, the ripple of water in a creek, or the crackle from a fire led the way to the miracle of Earth's harmony. I can't help but wonder what it was like. I can't help but feel grateful. I will never know. I admire features. I can write a thesis well. I don't need no features. Won't even give a reason. Sim throughout the season. Swell. Broke our little secret. Tore our little pictures. Spin another record jar of flies. Daily resting in my mind. Running through my speakers. Balling with no sneakers. I can blame the Reverend for you leaving. Body counts 11 since you leaving. Just wanna see your face. Need you in my mind. Need another taste. I can be your guy. You can be my babe. You say if there's a will, there can be a way. Hey. I hope that there's hope in my visions. I think that I'm falling in love with him. I notice you're open when I visit. I chose this, I need to relive it.
You want to try to answer it again?
No.
No.
I think it's fine because it's gonna be short, no? You don't need a really long answer.
Are we still rolling? Oh, that's good.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're gonna use that.
That's very more natural.